Yeah, messages are up. Okay, I think I'm live now. Am I live? Yes, I think I'm finally here. Right, apologies about that. I really thought I was live, and then I suddenly realised this was all telling me it wasn't. So, yes. Apologies. Welcome to episode 284 of Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres. And here we are, finally, live on YouTube. I do apologise, but here we go. Technical's still tripping up, even after all this time. Right, okay, we have comments. If you happen to be watching live, then yes, leave a comment. Let me know you're here. I can see we've got a few in already, which is a big relief. If you're watching the recorded version, you can still leave a comment. It's just I won't be able to respond in real time. And yes, if you want to click like just now, if you happen to be watching, then that's always useful. One of the things I've tended to find is that when quite a few people click like, it tends to show up in the feeds of other people who are maybe watching YouTube and looking out for photography. So occasionally we get the odd new person crop up as well. So yes, I can see. Yes. So today is the headshot challenge. So basically 3 weeks ago, I set up I talked in depth about the notion of headshots as a kind of distinct subgenre of portraiture and the specific kind of rules or guidelines that you tend to have to think about for headshots in particular. So I then set the headshot challenge, and we've had about 13 people send in images. So today we're going to be going through those images and seeing how different people have approached the topic and maybe even becoming a little bit inspired. So yes, let's me take it. It's thrown me completely, that whole kind of not starting properly bit. So I can see we've got comments in already. So let's make a start with that, and I'll hopefully calm myself down a bit. So April says, greetings from a sunny Long Island, New York. So happy the normal time is back. Well, of course, yes. Here in the UK, last night the clocks went forward an hour. So we're now into British summertime, which lines up now with that hour that moved forward for North America about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Lisa says hello from a sunny, cool, crisp southern Maryland. Alan, Alan joins us from a rainy Bridlington in Yorkshire, UK. Welcome, Alan. Alan's submitted one of the image for today as a new guide to for the podcast. So welcome, Alan. Really glad you could make it along live. Nicola joins us from just down the road, where she says it's just stopped raining. It's true here. It's really overcast, not a great day, but the pavement looks like it's starting to dry up. Gunilla joins us from Orland in sunny spring day there up in between Finland and Sweden. Susan says hi from a wild and windy Kakubri. At least it stopped raining. John says good day all. It's nice to have it's a nice day in Ohio. I might have to leave early to travel to Cincinnati. I've got no idea. I presume that's a long way away. But yes, if you have to leave early, you can always catch up on the recorded version afterwards. April says, safe travels, John. Robert joins us from a sunny and pleasant North Texas. Sorry I didn't get my entry in. I ran out of time yesterday. Yes, I was kind of wondering. Robert did say that it might be very last minute. So I was kind of wondering whether it might turn up in the early hours of the morning, but no sign of it. Andy's joined us and says, greetings, folks. Marilyn says, hello from a sunny Colorado. Janet says, I was just starting to think I had the wrong weekend for spring forward in the UK. Nadia joins us from Fife, and Lisa also says welcome to Alan. Right, okay. Right, so yes, I'm still just it freaked me out somewhat when I was busy welcoming everybody, and then I suddenly noticed it said stream wasn't working. However, we're all here, but forgive me if it takes me a little moment or two to properly settle back in. But it's good to have the live comments. So today then is the headshot challenge. So 3 weeks ago, episode 281 was all about the headshot. And the headshot is of a kind of distinct subgenre of portraiture. And one of the things about headshots, by and large, not always, but nearly always, the point of a headshot is it's for the person who's having the photo taken. Portraiture is wider than that. We can take a portrait of somebody and it's much more generally about our interpretation. Now, a headshot can also be our interpretation to a degree, but whereas a portrait, we're looking for maybe much more of a bigger sense of a person or a specific sense of a person. Well, there's all sorts. These things also apply in headshots, but headshots tend to be more specific. So headshots, generally speaking, tend to be for the person and for a particular purpose. Now, it might be for a CV or a resume. It might be an actor's headshot or an author's image to go on a book cover. By and large, it's tending to want to promote a very specific point to a particular audience. And maybe you want to come across as strong and confident, or warm and friendly, or wild and wacky even, thoughtful and intellectual. But the point is that there is a specific audience for it, and the person who is being photographed, the person for whom you are creating a headshot, is looking out to create an impression to the viewer. And it's about their impression to the viewer, which is all important. It's not necessary. So I might see somebody and I might have a particular opinion of them and want to photograph them in a particular way. But mostly a headshot tends to be about the person themselves. It's not how you might want to see them, but how they wish to be seen by other people. So if you think a little bit like a CV or a resume, you put together your best self for that particular job or situation and then you put it forward. Now, I extended that out slightly for this challenge to be headshot, as in it could go into a little bit into portraiture, sort of slightly wider than that. But the key thing here is that by and large, you're looking at kind of head and shoulders or head and upper body in terms. But I also wanted an engagement with the camera. I wanted people to be looking directly into their lens. Unlike some forms of portraiture where people can be looking off into the middle distance and you feel like you're more of a voyeur observing what's going on, this is about looking straight into the camera. So these were essentially the two key aspects to this. So was the head and shoulder, or head and upper body, and the engagement with the camera. And eventually, actually, everybody managed to fulfill that one. So good start there. Oh, what else have we got here? John's joined us. Says, I'm in Westerville. Cincinnati is in Ohio, and so the distance depends where John's located. Okay, right, okay. Little bits of comment there about how far John is from Cincinnati. And Meg's joined us and says, hello, everybody. Right, okay, so what am I going to do? Let's clear that for the moment, and we will make a start. So a little bit of desktop tidying up here while I take that and I swing this over here, so that what we can do is I can then do that, and now you should see the first photo that we have entered into the headshot challenge, which is from April in Long Island, New York. And April says, this headshot is from a willing individual. I'd hate to think she was unwilling if she was taking on this pose. What on earth would you be forcing her or blackmailing her with? Anyway, she says, it was taken from a willing individual named Abby. It was taken against a grey wall background. I asked her to do something fun. I also had another headshot from someone else, but I really liked the sharpness of this shot. So yeah, this is kind of fun. And we're into this point of, head and shoulders. Now, maybe it's not the kind of thing you would put on CV or your LinkedIn profile or something like that. But at the same time, if you are wanting to sort of show that you are energetic, fun, up for a bit of a laugh, then it's a pleasant shot. The grey background's fairly neutral. The lighting's fairly neutral. We can see from the catchlights in the eyes that there's, I don't know whether that's window or something like that, a couple of spotlights up there. Lights mostly coming from the front. But yes, lovely smile. That the eyes nice and sharp. Got the lashes kind of catching there, and that kind of creating shape around the face. So yeah, fun kind of. Oh, what is it? Susan says, great happy shot, April. Yeah, and it is a happy shot. It's a shot designed to put a smile on your face. It's warmth there. So yeah, nice one that, April. Thank you for sending that one in. I thought it was a kind of a good place to start. Lisa says, you captured her willingness. And April says, a great shot, April, as well. Right, okay, so next up then, we're going to move on to Janet. Now, Janet sent this one through, and Janet said, this image was from a US Civil War reenactment in Ontario in 2022. I tried to redo the sepia effects on the raw file, but couldn't figure out how I'd done it in the first place. I wasn't happy with my new attempt at the sepia conversion, so I ended up submitting a cropped version or resize of the original edit. Therefore, it's a smaller than ideal file. So basically, I think what's happened here is Janet created this photo 3-4 years ago, has gone back, revisited the photo, not been so happy with a recent edit, so just gone back to the original edit and cropped in a little bit closer. What it does mean is that the picture is quite a bit smaller. This is like the full size that I've been sent, but yeah, this is one of those kind of things to try out where you've got somebody reenactment, so at this point here you're 19th century, and a sepia tone kind of helps fit in with the feel of it. I mean, one of the other things you can do with it, if you're doing these kind of old style photos, maybe I can do it again at some point. I don't think I've got time to do it now, but is to kind of, if you're going for this very old portrait style, is to kind of create almost a glass plate effect, which you can do with photo of a window with the glass that's overlaid, multiple layers. I've talked about it in past podcasts, but actually it is a few years ago since I last did it, so maybe it's something I'll show you how to do again in the future. But the other thing that often happens with these kind of old sort of Victorian style photos is you tend to have a very, very narrow depth of field with those. It gets blurry very quickly. Always with photography, it's about light. How much light can you get into the lens? And in the old early cameras, especially back in the sort of 19th century times, you tended to have wide lenses with very narrow apertures, very wide apertures, very narrow depth of field to let as much light in as possible. And then very often people had to stand for anything from 4 to 10 seconds in order for the exposure to take place. So because of that narrow depth of field, trying to get as much light in as possible, very slow shutter speeds, people had to stand very still. So they usually didn't hold a smile, because a smile you can't really hold a smile for 10 seconds. So faces so you very often find you've got a slightly grimmer face, if you like. But what you really want to have is the background kind of out of focus quite quickly. But there's other things you can do with that. Anyway, this is a little bit of fun. Thanks for sending that one in, Janet. What else have we got here? John says, that was a fun shot, April. Anton joins us, says, howdy folks, a little late here, but here now. Excellent, glad you're here, Anton. Lisa says, really like this vintage feel. Gunilla says, I saw that podcast when you showed how to make a photo looking old. Oh, excellent, that's good. Right, well, next, just as well Anton's arrived, because Anton's the next one up. So the next photo I'm going to show then is this one of, actually, sorry, just before we get to that one. So Anton's actually said, I like the concept of positive vignetting as it gets more exposed at the edges. I haven't really dared to put any of it on my own photos yet, though. So what that is the idea of that the vignette, generally speaking, when we vignette, we tend to vignette darker around the edges to bring the eyes to the centre of the image. Whereas if you're talking about old sort of Victorian style photos, it tends to get whiter towards it. It fades out towards the edges rather than getting darker towards the edges. So yeah, you've got a positive rather than a negative vignette. Oh, Viji's joined us from Chennai in India, says hello everyone. Glad you could join us, Viji. So back to then. So this then is Anton's photo, and Anton said, I've had like 3 photo sessions with my friend now and getting better results each time. Here's the photo I've ended up picking for this session. And I mean, that's good. Just that in its own right is the idea of that you're not necessarily going to get it right first time. The more you do something, the more you practice, the better it gets. Anyway, he goes on, I don't really have any experience with portraiture to draw on, and so also I don't have any lighting equipment or of any kind, so that I've had to make do with very limited lighting conditions and make it up as I go. you might not be surprised. Well, you might be surprised. You might not be surprised that an awful lot of photography is done making it up as you go. The thing about that, though, is that the more experienced you become, the quicker you can solve the problems for winging it. So when you're talking about you don't have any lighting situation now. Anton says, I'm using a fairly high ISO, 6400. That's a high ISO, but I don't think it's particularly noticeable, so that's a plus. With this, if you're shooting JPEG, it tends to sort out a bit of the noise for you. But also, if it's just screen only, you're not going to notice the noise level. Where you would really notice it is if you're blowing it up. If you're blowing it up large to print, something you might have on the wall, then a 6400 ISO is probably kind of too high unless you're using noise reduction software. But he goes on. However, I'm not sure the lighting is ultimately working. Maybe if I adjusted the light and all my friends to get the light side of the face towards the camera instead of here where it is in the shaded side. The face pointing towards the camera, it would have worked better, but I don't have time to redo the shoot for this month's theme. Any pointers or thoughts appreciated. I mean, the thing about this is there's loads of different ways you can do their light. There's not a specifically right or wrong way. One of the things you can do, just if your friend's head was turned just fractionally more to the left, or the light was brought slightly more forward, then what you would actually have is a little bit of light clipping across the nose and then just lighting up the forward eye. And at that point, you often end up with a little triangle of light just underneath the eye in the shadow. And that's often known as the Rembrandt triangle. And that's because if you study Rembrandt in particular, amongst the kind of the Dutch old masters' paintings, that was something he used an awful lot. So where we go? So, okay. If you're looking at me now, this side of my face is lit by the window. This side of my face is in shadow, although there's bounce light. But you can see that this side is slightly darker. Now, if I just turn my head slightly to about here, see now how the light is cutting across my nose, and I'm just starting to get this little lighter patch on the cheek, which here is less noticeable. And it's just, and as you tilt the head round, now, if I come right round, it's now lighter here, but so depending on, it is one of those things where essentially keep clicking, keep turning, keep moving lights, keep seeing what happens. And after a while, you start to get a feel for how the light is falling on the face and which parts is going to be the slightly more dramatic for the effect that you want in that moment. But if you're kind of, like this, if you're using, you might be using a side light, a table light or something like that. But if you can get window light, if you could do this during the day, maybe now the lights are getting, the evenings are getting lighter, maybe an early evening shot if you're working during the day or maybe a weekend. Window light. So like right here now, even though it's a very, very dull day, and yeah, the rain's just back on again. The window light does give quite a lot of light. Probably if you had similar camera settings right now, I'd probably be on an ISO 500 or an ISO 1000 or something like that, but it wouldn't be as bad as the 6400. So anyway, there's a thought for that. Okay, what else have we got? April says, I like the half light and the dark with this portrait. And Anton says, oh yeah, I see the light. Okay, excellent. Right. So yes, thank you for sending that one in, Anton. Right, next up then, we are going to Graham. Graham crops up occasionally. He sends me in bits and pieces. It's not too often, but anybody who remembers Graham may remember we've seen this this guy before. Now, what I'm aware of with this one from Graham is that he's, I think he's cropped in really close on what was a very high ISO grainy image to begin with, which he's also exaggerated in his editing process. What it means is that we don't have to zoom in very far at all to see just how noisy and grainy this is. Having said that, it is an immensely powerful picture. There's no doubt about it. The everything about this, the engagement of the eyes, the way the hand is coming over, the lit cigarette, the landscape of the face and the whole composition. I mean, it just absolutely smacks you in the face with this. It's such a powerful photo. Whoa. Sorry, the rain suddenly caught my attention there. It's lashing, absolutely lashing. And my car is outside and the raindrops are literally bouncing off the roof at the moment. I don't know whether Nicola's just had that because she's about 5 miles along the road from where I am, so she probably got that weather. That weather first. Sorry, distracted there. Back to this photo. Yes, so this one by Graham, really powerful photo. Yeah, it's kind of an odd one. Generally speaking, I would always say I would prefer the idea of, a higher resolution and all the rest of it. But I think what Graham's done is he's taken a high ISO, low resolution photo, but the way he's edited it is to lean into that as such. So it becomes almost, you could imagine that you could print this on a t-shirt because it's now very few shades of grey. It's not really subtle. It's kind of made the most of a kind of a limited grey tone palette. So yeah, a great image there, Graham. I hope you tune back in when you get the chance. What have we got here? So Viji said, maybe the lighting or posture reminds me of the Mona Lisa. Oh, that's going back to Anton's one. I know the comparing apple to an orange, but just saying beautiful capture and lighting. Okay, so that's to do more with the soft lighting as opposed to, say, Graham's hard lighting one here. Anton says, thank you. The temperature of the light colour is kind of similar to the Mona Lisa, I think. So that slightly yellowish tint to it, yes. Andy says, great capture. Anton says, this is awesome. Lisa says, wow, nicely done. Viji says, it's a good image. The state is too powerful. With the do not mess with me look. Or stare, not state. Yes, okay. The stare is so powerful, yes. Nicola says, oh, it's still dry here, Kim. All right, must have skipped over the top of you then. Anton says, he looks tough, but he's kind of got a twinkle in the eye in a friendly way, in my opinion. Susan says, great gritty image, Graham. And Nicola says, I like the tight crop, Graham. Excellent. Okay, so thank you to Graham for that one. Next up then, we're going to go to Gunilla. Now, Gunilla sent in this photo. Says, hi Kim, I photographed 3 people for this challenge. My grandson, 15 years old, my friend, 75 years old, and my granddaughter, 18 years old. After a lot of thinking, I decided to choose this picture of my granddaughter, although it is very small file due to the crop. I like it because she looks very natural with the wind blowing in her hair and a little shy smile on her lips. First of all, we were inside a very small room with a window light, but it was hard to move around to get the best angle. So we went outside instead. There is a field next to our house and the forest behind it, and she stayed out in the field with the forest as the background. It was overcast and quite windy. I photographed her in full body and cropped in later, which is why it's a small file. She just turned 18 and is a student in upper secondary school. She likes to be with her friends and likes to dance. Cook and bake, blah, blah, friends' hobbies. I think this was a fun but difficult challenge. After I did my photo shoots, I saw what I should have done. So it was very educational. I hope I'll be able to practice headshots and portraits in the future and avoid the mistakes I made now. Okay, so what's really great about this, Gunilla, is that you went out and you tried. Rather than, when we're doing photography, for these challenges, I know not everybody has the time to actually go and have a go at doing something fresh. Sometimes you don't have the time, you just have to grab something from the archives, or people try something, it doesn't work, and then they run out of time, so they grab something from the archives. Or sometimes, and it sounds like Anton was doing this, and I know a bit later Viji did this, sounds like you have been doing this as well, which is to go out and take a photo specifically for the challenge. And I think that's great. I think if you can then take on board the ideas while they're still fresh and try and feed them in and play with them. What I found particularly interesting in this, and is a point for anybody who's listening really, and those who do portraits a lot will completely understand, is that notion of kind of, it's only once you're editing the photos afterwards do you understand the photo you should have taken or what you should have done. I've heard even movie producers and directors talking about this, that very often they only truly realise the film they should have shot when they're editing it, and they realise that actually they don't have that bit of footage that would have made it better, or they haven't shot from the right angle, or they haven't done something right, which at the time they weren't aware of. But that's what happens with practice. The more you do it, the more you get it, the more you get a feel for it. And to come back to this idea, as I was sort of starting to say to Anton earlier, it's photography can kind of be described. It's like 125th of a second or whatever, going click. The rest of the time is problem solving. How do we get the kind of photo we want to tell the kind of story, put across the mood, feel, narrative that we want to express with the situation that we've got, with the person we've got, with the lighting we've got, with the equipment we've got, with the background we've got. And so it's problem solving. And how quickly you solve that problem, how inventively or creatively you solve that problem, depends on, if you like, the tools you have in your toolbox. You know, if to use the analogy of a kind of a handyman or something like that, if you only have a hammer, you're kind of limited to the number of things you can fix or break. If you have a hammer and a saw, then you've got more options. And so likewise with photography, there's your camera and the lenses you've got, and, you know, how high you can go with your ISO or how wide you can go with your aperture, and that's fine. But then there's also your understanding of composition. If you understand the way that diagonals work, then, or leading lines work, then you can introduce these into your composition and and fix a problem. If you understand how light works and the difference between front light, side light, back light, combinations of bounce light, you can solve another set of problems. If you understand how narrative works, if you really understand what is it I'm trying to, you know, what am I trying to get across to the viewer, then it allows you to pull on all these different tools that you have. So the more you photograph, the better you get, the more deeper your understanding, the more you practice, the more tools you have at your disposal in order to create the photo that you want. So yes, the practice, go out, try it again, try different variations. It's all good stuff. It all feeds into the problem solving, so that there's that lovely phrase, experience is what you gain immediately after you needed it the most. So it's not something that ever kind of helps you in that moment, but it feeds into your future. Couple of comments. What have we got here? April says, oh, she's pretty. Anton says, nice windy feel. Lisa says, very natural shot. Viji says, very pretty, and the background adds to depth. John says, pretty girl and good capture. Susan says, this is a lovely natural image, Gunilla. Hope she loves it. Gunilla says, I think she does like it. Anton says, photography to me is a constant dance between finding problems while editing them, trying to tackle them the next time I shoot, finding new ones when I edit, and then it goes round and round. Well, yes, it goes round, but hopefully each time it goes round, you're at a slightly higher level. It never truly disappears. You can be a professional photographer for decades, and, well, actually, to be honest, if that all disappears, if you get the shot you want every time you point the camera and you have to do minimal editing because everything was perfectly fine, then I would say you're not pushing yourself. You've just fallen into a comfort zone and you're just doing the same thing and you're not growing anymore. We have to embrace the idea that things don't work and that we get better. One of the things I've said many times before in these podcasts is every photo that goes wrong, we learn from. The photos that go right, we don't tend to learn much from. We get the praise for them, and the praise for them is lovely. That's great. We get the kudos, we get the status, we get everybody telling us how lovely we are, and that's very nice. But we don't actually learn from it. We learn from every photo that goes wrong. So we need to embrace that whole idea, not get disheartened by it, but actually embrace it, that each photo we take that goes wrong is a step towards a greater level of understanding of photography. Anton says, but I like it because there's always that next step. I've done something after I finish the edits, and the next step is shooting, and the next step is editing. Never gets stale. Yes, that's I guess that's reflecting on what I'm saying. So, right, okay. So thank you for sending that one in, Gunilla. Next up, we then have John in Ohio. Whether he's set off for Cincinnati yet, I'm not sure. But anyway, John sent in this one. And a couple of people did this as well, which is went for a self-portrait. And certainly I suggested this because one of the problems that there is when you're trying to do headshots, if you're not a portrait photographer, if you don't have access to friends and family who are quite happy to be in front of your camera, then one of the ways to practice this is to turn the camera on yourself. It's very difficult though to be, I mean, first of all, most photographers tend to prefer to be prefer to be behind the camera rather than in front. And secondly, it's difficult you can't see what you're doing as you're doing it, at least not so easily. Now, what you can do with certain pieces of software, depending on your camera, is I can tether my camera essentially to my phone or my tablet through a piece of software on my Canon R5, so that I can essentially remote operate it. So I can have it on the screen, say, of my tablet. I can see what it's seeing. I can shift myself left or right. I can turn my head, make sure that everything's where it is. Maybe have it on a 2-second timer. Click. Move the tablet or the phone just out of shot. Pull my expression and then take the shot. So that tends to be a slightly easier way of doing it if you've got that option. What are we saying here? Anton says, I like a nice relationship between the pattern on the chair and sofa and the necklace. April says, I see that slight grin, John. And Alan says, can you imagine the knowledge that the 1960s seaside photographer had one shot and had to be good? Yeah, to be honest though, on that point, Alan, is that the seaside photographer had got it perfected and never actually pushed then beyond. Well, once you know that the people turning up are going to be there this distant, you have your aperture set at this, you have your ISO set at that, you have your shutter speed set at this, and then everybody stands in the same place and you just go click and it's school photography. You're just doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, rinse and repeat. And that's fine. That means that you've got a guaranteed minimal level of quality of shot, but it doesn't allow for growth. It doesn't allow for experimentation in the same way. So yeah, kind of two things. This is one of those things I think where I always slightly feel when there's a sense of, sometimes you get this idea being put across. I'm getting a little tangent here for a moment. I'll come back to John's photo. But I think it's an interesting place to explore here, and I appreciate you bringing this up, is that sometimes there can be this kind of nostalgia, almost like those who had to sort of use a film camera, who didn't know what it looked like before the photo was taken, or they would take the photo, still had no idea what it looked like until you get into the dark rooms later in the day or 2 weeks later, or you've sent it off to the pharmacy to get it, to get it printed and sent back, that they had a greater knowledge and understanding. And somehow we in the digital age are less than. And I don't think that's true. I think they had a different system. And certainly you had to have a better technical understanding up front, because you couldn't do that. You couldn't, you had to absolutely make sure you had it in focus. You had to absolutely make sure you had it in the right exposure. But I don't think it allowed for as much experimentation. It was harder to experiment. I think there's something rather wonderful about being able to go click, look in the back of the camera and instantly be able to go, oh, that's kind of interesting. But what would happen if I moved the light here? What would happen if I shifted my shoulder here? What would happen if we just turned everything so the background was just slightly different? And I think the tools that we have now are, without doubt, slightly different tools. We're still talking about it as photography, for sure, but because it's light hitting a sensor, so it's photography, making marks with light. But our tools are slightly different. But I don't necessarily think it means we're less than. I think it's just different. But yeah, I could probably go off on a way long tangent. Let's come back to this. Good, interesting points though, Alan. Anton says, is that a thing? I'd love to look that up. Yeah, see, because Anton's so much younger than us, Alan. What do you mean there were people at the beach taking photos? Okay, so back to John's picture here. Viji says, John, very good portrait. That's very tricky. Alan said, yes, it did exist, but the photographer's skills are probably more in people control. I think that's probably very true, to be honest. Susan says, great self-portrait, John. I'd be interested to know how many shots you took before you decided on this one. Okay, so what John said, let's tell you what John said about this photo. So John said, this is me, a self-portrait headshot. I thought about this quite a lot. I thought about lighting, background, how to take the shot. In the end, I decided to use my 50mm fixed lens. It would have gone for an 85, but didn't have one yet. I set the ISO to 400 and used only available light. The lens was set at f2. I wanted the background blurry, but I didn't want a solid colour in the background. There is also some catchlight in the eye. That little point actually about catchlights, really important in portraits, that if you have that little catchlight, it adds a touch of life to the photo. And where you really notice is if you have a portrait without the catchlights, somehow the eyes tend to look dead. So some movies know this, and in fact, not just movies, manga. If you look at manga, comics, animations, they will have 2 catchlights. And when they really want to emphasize an emotion, they make sure there's 3 catchlights. And some movie directors do this as well. They put little spotlights kicking about the place so that the eyes will deliberately have maybe more than 1 catchlight. Something to play around with if you ever want to have a go. Anyway, John says, I'm semi-pleased with the results. I took about 25 shots using my girlfriend to press the shutter. Aha. So there's the remote release, there's, clicking with a cable, or there's the, kind of remote control with your digital stuff, or there's a remote control as in you get your girlfriend to say, go click. Now, let me take a look in the back. Okay, go click again. It said editing was cropping and spot removal, really, not too much else. My eyes are more red than I would like, and my shirt could have been neater. Well, that's one of those things. Yeah, you immediately become very self-conscious about your appearance when you're doing self-portraits. I tried leaning in and looking into the camera. I'm better behind the lens and in front of it. I have no aspirations to be a model, he says. Fair enough. And I think that's probably very true for a lot of photographers. A lot of photographers almost kind of become photographers because it allows them to be the one behind the camera and not in front of it. There's a lot of photographers I know who so hate being in front of the camera that they deliberately hold the camera. It's also like people who drive. It's like there are some people who are terrible passengers. Like they can't cope with somebody else driving the car. So they essentially are always the one who drives, so that they just don't have to put up with other people's driving. And there's a similar kind of thing goes on here with photography as well. So yeah, fun idea here, John. I think, that notion of, trying to set it up, get there, you've got your couch in the background, catchlights in the eyes work. Well done for turning the camera yourself. I know it wasn't easy, but I like the idea that you've made the effort specifically for this rather than just necessarily going off and grabbing something out of the archives. So Anton says, a lot of documentaries I've seen about old photographers gives me the impression they were very practical. It wasn't about fundamentals, but the situation and camera equipment specifically. Not a lot of theory, just a lot of experience. Anton, catchlight part of the thing theory, probably. I'm not quite sure what you mean the thing theory, but but basically yes, catchlights are it's another one of all these different aspects to photography. There's all these different aspects to composition, different aspects to lighting, and bit by bit over time you build up a larger knowledge of, it's like composition. When you first start taking photos, most people tend to keep everything sort of smack bang in the middle. Then you learn rule of thirds. You suddenly find that if things are off center, by and large, they tend to look slightly better than when something's in the middle. Not always, but a lot of the time. And then some people think, oh, I've learnt rule of thirds, I've learnt composition, and that's it. But there's all these different things. And if you go back through some of the past 283 episodes of this podcast, there's all sorts of compositional techniques you can bring in. And the more compositional techniques you learn, the more lighting techniques you learn, all these different things feed into you being able to express the narrative you want to express more easily. Catchlights in the eyes is just one of these little things. April says, I want to hire a few people that have the look that I want to them to be in a specific place for it. You may have ideas, but then you have the problem of trying to find people to fulfill them. This is a major problem. This is true. There are models about. If you have a little bit of extra cash or what, if you've got friends, family, people you can drag in, that's great. If you don't, there are various modelling sites online and what have you, and some of them have ratings. There's where you can hire people for an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours. You can go for the kind of personal people that have got a particular look that you want. You can chat with them. They're used to being in front of the camera. They're used to knowing how to present themselves. They can work with you to kind of create something if you're after a very specific kind of image. So yeah, if you've got the cash and availability to get hold of people, then that's a good way of doing things. Anton says, sorry, the carpenter horror has a lot of people crafting theories about how you can tell who is the thing. Oh, from the 80s movie. Oh, okay, right. Reference I don't get. I did see the thing, but it probably was back in the 1980s, so I can't remember all the dialogue. Andy says, photography, every day's a school day. Absolutely, yes. Okay, next up then. Well, Andy, let's go to Andy. So Andy, right, if you want, right. So just before I get onto this, for the new people here, for Anton, if I didn't happen to be tuning in at some point, for Gunilla, Andy is a people photographer, and so whenever if we do anything with headshots, Andy usually throws in something, you know, really that kind of grabs you, and this time is no exception. So this is Andy's shot. And Andy says, here is my entry to the headshot challenge. This is a local producer and rapper, 24 Vision, a member of the Archive Trip Hop Collective. I wanted to capture something of his intensity and energy in this portrait, together with the directness of his delivery. And this is Andy doing powerful stuff, and he's using the lighting. Yes, there's several things going on here which are working really well. I mean, obviously the guy's expression, he is completely into it. And actually, to go back to April's point about trying to find people, one of the things I would say and I would suggest here is musicians. Musicians, bands, especially young bands and what have you. Bands and musicians are always needing promotional photography, but they never have any money. I mean, unless you're kind of, you know, up there at the top bands. There are thousands, tens of thousands, millions of local bands who, if they make enough money to cover their bus fare to and from the gig, they feel they've done really well. Okay, they don't make any money, but they just do it through their own enthusiasm. So bands are crying out for photographers, and because bands are also performers, they're used to being up on stage and projecting a presence. They're usually up for it. So if you want to try some ideas out, then that's a really, really good place to start. So bands, local musicians, go down to your local bar or whatever way and just talk to people, or just put the word out. You might have friends who've got friends who are in a band. Guaranteed you will find people who will absolutely be up for a photo session. Now, so go back to this one then. So Andy's this rapper, 24 Vision, he's a performer, and so Andy's already into something here. This guy wants a shot, and what's making this? We've got the intensity of that look, and then the hands coming up are framing the face. The fingers pushing into the skin, causing these wrinkles, are really intensifying the whole landscape of the face. Andy's gone for a single softbox, like large softbox, which we can then see reflected in the catchlights. You can just see the corner of it here, a little bit over here, just catching it here. And that's then creating, because the light is coming down from that top side here, it's creating shadows here, making it almost kind of quite, and then the dark background is creating quite a kind of almost painterly sense to it. So all these different aspects, from the framing, the stare, the lighting, little bits of catchlights, moving the skin together, Andy's putting together these different elements to create a very intense, powerful headshot with this. So yeah, great one, Andy, and thanks for sending that in. And you know, this kind of thing hopefully helps the likes of Anton to understand where you can go with it, and for April as well. If you get hold of a musician, go for a dark background. Lots of fun to be had there. What do we got? Anton says, yes, wow. April says, love it, Andy. Lisa says, wow, Andy. Susan says, Andy, your explanation sums it all up perfectly. Brilliant. Anton says, yeah, musicians are always looking to present and experiment with an image. Probably perfect to work with if you're experimenting photographer. April says, Andy, did you hire him? I'd be very surprised. No, he wouldn't need to. Musicians want to have, if anything, sometimes the musician will hire you if you're known for taking good photos and they need a specific photograph. Viji says, wow, Andy, quite intense and such a great capture. Everything is perfect. Andy says, I met him in a pub and asked if he wanted promos. Yep, that's great. April says, wow, that's cool. Great idea. Alan says, nice skin tone. Nick says, love the construction of the photo, Andy. Andy says, musicians are great subjects. If you need free models, they are usually a great source. Yep, absolutely echoing what we were saying there. So Right, okay, so thank you very much for sending that one in, Andy. So we're about halfway through, so just a little reminder that if you find these podcasts useful, interesting, entertaining, and would like to support them, then buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is one of the ways you can do it. And of course, another way you can do it is invite your friends along. It's really nice that this past month or so, past couple of months, we've started gaining a couple of new people coming in with the likes of Gunilla and Anton and now Alan as well. And that's really nice to sort of start growing this little community of ours. Now, if you're wanting to enter challenges or wanting feedback, critique on your images, then I've set up this email address, kimayrespodcast@gmail.com, as a place to send them. Now, if you're used to sending them to my usual email address, that's okay, I'll still take them. But as a way of sort of stopping my inbox getting completely full, I've now set this one up separately as an ideal place to send it. There is, of course, still the Facebook group. And if you happen to be on Facebook and you can stick your images in there, I think April and Andy, I think, have both put their images into the Facebook group as well. Right, what else? Oh, yeah, and a quick reminder as well, if you haven't done so already, if you could click like down here somewhere, just click like on the video. I think it helps the algorithms a little bit, and occasionally we get a few stray people coming in from YouTube who didn't know we existed, but YouTube's decided to put in a few more feeds. Where do we go? Oh, Marcy's joined us. Oh, well, welcome, Marcy. Marcy says, I'm late but got here just in time to see Andy's great headshot. Nice work, Andy. And April says, I had no idea about musicians being like that. Yeah, it is absolutely true. Musicians, they're performers and they need to get their images out there, but they don't have any money. So generally speaking, if you say, I'm a photographer, I'm looking to create some interesting photos, are you up for it? Do you want to have a discussion about it? Then almost guaranteed you're going to get a yes. Tend to be really easy to work with, or open for ideas anyway. So, right. Next up then, oh yeah, actually just a quick reminder then, Smug Points as well. So where are we with the Smug Points? So we've been working our way through March and are currently, Anton is in the lead with 70 Smug Points as we started this podcast. Gunilla very close behind on 65 Smug Points, and they're both way out ahead of Marilyn, who's in third place on 40 Smug Points. But of course this could all change because there's points to be gained through what the submissions here. So remember, you get 5 Smug Points just for writing. If you turn up live and you say hello, you leave a comment in the live chat, then you get 5 Smug Points. If you submitted an image, you get 10 Smug Points. And then as we come towards the end of the podcast, we will have a viewer's vote. So everybody decides who their favourite one is, and the viewer's vote will get a bonus 20 Smug Points. And then we'll have my choices for first, second, third for a bonus 30, 20 and 10 Smug Points as well. But if you've been submitting for feedback sessions, you get a bonus 25 Smug Points as well, which is how Gunilla and Anton have managed to move so far ahead, is because we had 2 feedback sessions this month and they've submitted to both of them. So there we are, Smug Points. So all ready for to see, anything could happen at this moment. So next up then, we are going to go to Meg, my daughter Meg. So she was looking for somebody to do a headshot of in order to submit something here. And she's kind of limited around. There's not a lot of people about that really like having their photo taken. And so she ended up with me. So this is Meg's shot of me. We were sitting having, obviously I'm sitting having coffee. This was just a couple of days ago. She's sitting across the table for me. I'm busy doing my Sudoku puzzle, and she decided, right, okay, we need the headshot for Dad. So this is in our kitchen. The light is purely window light coming from off to one side. Creates a nice kind of light on one side, a little bit of shadow on the other. Took a few little versions where, I kind of moved the cup up or down a little bit, looked over the top of my glasses or whatever. But yeah, so here we go. This is Meg's shot of me. So anyway, she took it on her phone. She doesn't have a lot of editing options, so she sent it to me. I just cropped it in a little bit and turned it to black and white for her. So yes, difficult for me to be completely unbiased with this when it's of my daughter, but also then there's this sort of strangeness of seeing myself in the photo. But yeah, nice one, Meg. Thank you. So a couple of comments. What have we got here? Anton says, who is this handsome fellow? Well, my twin brother, obviously. April says, Meg, love it. Lisa says, perfect. Anton says, lovely. Andy says, great shot, Meg. Marcy says, very nice, Meg. Gunilla says, very good shot, Kim. Nicola says, super shot, Meg, full of character. Marilyn says, well done, Meg. April says, I like doing easy Sudoku puzzles. Very good for the brain, Kim. Viji says, yay, Meg, class shot. Dad always looks extra handsome with when their daughters click the photo. And Susan says, I recognise your model, Meg. Great shot. Excellent. Okay. So thank you, Meg, for sending that one in. Now, next up then, we go on to Viji. Now, this is a rather lovely shot. Now, Nadia says, great shot, Meg, as well. Now, Viji sent in this one. And Viji has also really been at it, like Gunilla and Anton and a couple of others here, as she's been out there trying. So Viji says, here's my submission for the headshot challenge. For the past 3 weeks, I've been trying to take photos for this challenge. That's commitment for you. I've troubled my friends to pose, stare, smile, laugh, be angry. I've made them wear a top hat, made them pose before the mirror. Never struggled so much to take photographs. Thought I was losing it. While my friends were happy to get some shots for their DP is that... I guess it's kind of display photos as such. I wasn't satisfied or pleased about it. Finally, I got a break at the last minute. I went for a day out with my family, accompanied by my niece and her husband. We went to, and this is where I'm going to murder the translation, or not the words, Mahabalipuram. I'm going to go for Mahabalipuram and hope I pronounced that correctly. Apologies, Viji, if I've completely mangled it. Anyway, we went to Mahabalipuram to unwind, as I was a bit stressed lately due to my father's illness. And these two darlings were determined on giving me a good time, and they knew the only way I really relax is when I pick up a camera with some beautiful land packed with nature for me to photograph. So I photographed them. They were both incredibly photogenic. And I just have to give them little cues, and they were both born to pose. My niece is a fashion technology student, and her husband is a wannabe cinematographer, and great eye for location and posing. This shot I'm submitting is of my niece. I saw a natural frame of leaves, and her face touched nothing but the sun. The shadows and the lighting are perfect, and our eyes stared right into our souls. Thanks, Kim, for setting up this challenge in this way, away from my comfort zone, and I'm happy with the result. Not only this, I now have a few more precious ones for my own portfolio. Well, I think this is a beautiful photo, Viji. I love the way the shadows, we've got the leaves creating a frame around her face, and the way the shadows are falling on the face here, and even the kind of the curve of this shadow around, just framing her eye as well. Front eye nicely in focus on the lips as well, but very soft depth of focus, and the out of focus leaves in the front as much as the out of focus behind are really kind of creating this sense of her being in the tree, almost a kind of dryad, like a sort of tree spirit in some levels. Nice colour scheme with it. There's kind of rich tonal browns and hint of purple there, perhaps on the top, and little bits of green there as well, and the reddishness of the hues in there. Really striking image, Viji. I'm very impressed with this one. I also love the idea that, I don't want you to get stressed about it. I mean, I am seriously impressed the idea that you've clearly been really going for it to try and create a photo for this shot. But hopefully, with a bit of luck, sounds like it's been acting a little bit like therapy at the same time. Comments we have so April says she's very pretty, Viji, creative. Nicola says a beautifully framed shot, Viji. Anton says incredible. Susan says superb. I knew you would come up with something exotic. Alan says interesting composition. I like the use of the shadows. Viji says display photo. Yes, okay, DP as a shortcut for display photo. Meg says is thanking people for the comments, and so's Viji. April says it's also a family member, Viji, much more comfortable around her, makes a difference. Sometimes family members are useful. For Meg, it was useful to be able to photograph me. Sometimes family members won't come near you. Very difficult for me to ever get a photo of my son. He just kind of, no, take it away, Dad. Nadia says, lovely, Viji. Okay, thank you very much for sending that one in, Viji. Right, next up, we're going to go to our new guy, Alan. So Alan from Bridlington in East Yorkshire he's also gone for self-portrait here. Now, Alan, this is Alan's photo. He says, this is self-portrait taken last October in my living room. I'm sometimes amazed at how one comes across in a photo. I know I can look stern or sometimes angry, but I'm rarely either of these. There's times when I can't recognise myself. So this photo is one of several different ones I tried that are also, and this one fitted your criteria of looking directly at the camera when shot. This photo was experimenting with underexposure to get the contrast, and I adjusted in post-processing. The flash was fired through a white umbrella. So yeah, I know that feeling. I've got a few self-portraits I've done myself, Alan, where it's a kind of exploration of your own face. We don't see ourselves externally very much. We see ourselves in the mirror. That's probably the times we see ourselves most, is in the mirror. We don't often see ourselves at other times. And so somebody takes a photo of us, or we take a photo of ourselves, and we're, it can look slightly, and we kind of, who is this person? And there's kind of exploration of your own face as well. And I think self-portraiture can be a really interesting one for doing that. I mean, we saw this earlier with John's photo as well. John's trying to do the same thing. It's the difficulty of trying to not look awkward in your own photo as well. This one is very bright, it's colourful. You've got your yellow top. I don't know whether with the editing, the colours have kind of become slightly more saturated. They're certainly, but it's interesting. They're kind of bluish tint in the silver hair, reddish of the cheeks, the yellow of the top, kind of bold primary colours. Two things I would suggest in terms of when you're presenting, in terms of the photo. One is, in the editing process, because you've brightened everything up, this white patch of shirt has then become over brightened. It's really, and when you've got a really bright white patch like that, you run into the danger of the fact that it grabs the attention. So what you're wanting the viewer to do when they're looking at a portrait is to look at the face. But if there's another bright patch in the photo, it's kind of competing for attention. So if you were to go back and re-edit this, I would say maybe you mask. You'll be careful about just, the little bit of white t-shirt underneath there, to make sure that that doesn't become quite so bright. And in fact, you can possibly even colour it down slightly if necessary. The second thing, and Susan knows where I'm going with this one, is the border that you've created. Now, creating a border on a picture is one of these things that makes sense for if you're printing. If you're printing it, then you're creating it almost like a mount. It means that if you do mount it or you frame it, there's an edge there, and it stops the actual picture itself being encroached on by the mount or the frame. On screen, though, we have far fewer pixels. Your original photo might be something like 6,000 pixels high. On the screen is maybe 1,000 pixels high, 1,080 on a lot of resolution, phones and screens. So you've got a fraction the amount of real estate, if you like. The amount of pixels, the amount of space you have is very small. So if you put a border on it, you've shrunk it even more. It's become even smaller. And I think when we're talking about images that are going to be seen on a screen, whether that's a phone, a tablet, a computer screen, something like Instagram or social media, or just, on a phone or tablet that you're showing to somebody else, or even to look back at yourself, then you've kind of shrunk it smaller than you need to. So my advice generally tends to be, don't put borders on images that are only for the screen, because you're then kind of wasting the limited amount of space that you have. So hope those suggestions you find useful. Viji says, I love this photograph in the challenge, as it's very difficult to capture the essence of a person posing. Every photo, even one without a story told by the photograph, I can create one. Anton says, this is great, love the yellow sweater. Susan says, I was waiting for you to mention the borders, Kim. I knew you would be. Anton says, yeah, White's got to learn to be aware of this myself. And careful with those highlights myself. Yeah, it's another one of those things to go back to kind of what we were talking earlier about, just saying to Anton here about that notion of the tools in the toolbox, the little things that work and you sort of start building up. And one of the things is to understand that when you are kind of creating an image, you've got to think, where are you wanting to draw the eye to? And in portraits, first and foremost, the first place you want to draw attention to is the eyes. Okay, that's what people are looking for. They're looking at the eyes. But if there's something else that's bright or catching attention, then the viewer gets drawn to something else. There's suddenly competition. The eye doesn't quite know where to go first, or it's wanting to go here, but it's being pulled down here. So yeah, you've got to kind of get the balance, work out the compositional tricks to make sure that the eyes are going exactly where you want them to. If you think back to Andy's photo of the wrapper, you know, the way it's framed, the hands are actually helping to frame the fact, as well as the intense look, the rest of the composition is there to draw your attention to the eyes. And also, even with Viji's picture of the woman, and the shadow around the face is also drawing attention to the eyes. So it's the eyes that you see first, and you're making sure that other things are complementing but not detracting from the bit you're trying to get across. What else have we got here? Anton says, it's always chapter Viji there. And well, what's a quote here? It says, Cartier-Bresson says, you have to try and put your camera between the skin of the person and his shirt. Interesting idea. And Viji says, great quote. Okay. Sorry, so many tangents I can go off on, and already we're past 4 o'clock. Okay, apologies, we still have a few photos to get through. I thought this might be a shorter one, so much for that. Okay, Marcy says, would the photo work better if the arms were not crossed? It depends. It depends on the narrative you're trying to get across. This one does create, it's a particular impression with the arms crossed. If you don't have the arms crossed, it's a different narrative. So it comes down to understanding what are you trying to put across. It does create a kind of more defensive posture. Now, at this point, maybe Alan wanted that, maybe Alan did. If Alan didn't want this, then actually uncrossing the arms is true. If you were going for a LinkedIn profile, then no, you wouldn't do that because it looks kind of too defensive. But there are other places where you might want it. So it's all about understanding how you want the picture to be viewed, who's going to be looking at the picture, how are they going to be viewing it, what impression do you want the viewer to take away with them when they look at the photo. And if you can understand that bit, then that helps you make choices of your lighting, of your composition, and even things like whether the arms are folded or not. So this one then, next up then is, what is it? Sorry, back to that. So Alan said the border advice gratefully received. I don't post on social media, so I have this on my printing setup. Fair enough. And Anton saying to Marcy, I thought about that too, would give more warmth, I think. Sometimes you want the warmth, but sometimes you don't. And interestingly, I suppose if we go now to Sandra's photo here, this photo isn't about warmth. It's not about warmth. It's not about friendliness, but it's about attitude. Likewise, Andy's one wasn't about warmth or friendliness. So it doesn't have to be that way. So it's about understanding what the portrait's for. This one is all about attitude. This one feels like, whoa, not entirely sure I want to meet this person in a dark alley. You know, could he be mugging me? Or, you know, it's an intimidating photo, this. Part of that is the expression on the guy's face, but also is the fact that this is shot from lower down. We are looking up. So automatically, this guy feels taller. Now, in reality, who knows? He might only be 4'10", standing on a box, or the person's crouching down as they're taking the photo. But that's part of it, is that sort of the sense that we're looking up, the guy is looking down, jaw towards us, filling up that space. It's a photo of intimidation. But black and white, nicely lit. April says good pose. So Sandra says, I attached a photo I took last Saturday. I joined a group of local photographers to do some outdoor flash and natural light portraiture. There was experimenting using harsh contrasting midday lighting to create dramatic portraits. The person in the photograph is Ray, and I think the conversion to black and white focuses the attention on the subject's face. Partly the conversion to black and white. It would depend on the colour. I mean, if he had a bright red jacket or, you know, bright yellow t-shirt or something like that, then that again would grab attention away. By going to black and white, what's also happening is you've got the light coming down onto the face. And so, you know, if you squint, if you kind of blur your eyes, you find that your attention does get drawn to this lighter patch here. So that's also helping to draw the attention up to the face. What's also working here is the jacket is coming up, and if you look at the opening of the jacket, comes up and then to the collar, and this kind of helps frame. So the jacket itself, that kind of t-shirt is or the zip lines are drawing your attention up here, and you've got the curve around here. The tilt of the head is also, by putting in that diagonal we've talked about, is adding more energy to the picture. Whereas if his head was straight, it maybe wouldn't have quite as much. That slight tilt adds to a kind of a level of forceful energy. Alan says, nice monochrome tones. Anton says, this is the kid in class who makes the teacher start stuttering during their lecture. And Susan says, so much to read into this image, Sandra. Very dramatic. Okay, so thank you for sending that one in, Sandra. Yes, Sandra. Okay, next up we're going to Nicola. Now, interestingly, Nicola sent me a photo which was missing one key ingredient, which as in she wasn't actually looking directly at the camera. I love the photo, and I will show you the photo here, this one. Nicola's playing around with spreading her hair out behind her, but it wasn't. So I was about to send her an image saying, oh, you're not engaged with the camera, when she went, oh, sorry, not that one. Can I send you another one? And then she sent me another one, and she said, oh no, sorry, I've cropped that wrong. Can I send you another one? So this was the one that actually Nicola is submitting. Huge fun here. Hair all going out, almost kind of Bride of Frankenstein, I think, with something like that. It's just this sort of massive kind of, and then the expression. Lots of fun. So Nicola says, here's my attempt at the portrait challenge, the third attempt. I feel this image is more in keeping with my original objective, which is to show that despite some doubt, hesitation in the process of ditching the brunette look and going natural, so allowing her hair to be as grey as it is, it's actually fun to embrace it. And now I'm quite at home with my true colour. I toyed with the idea of rotating the shot 180 degrees, just to show you what that might look like. But it looked odd as the dynamics of my face didn't match the orientation. Go right round. There we go. This is on a phone camera, hence the quality isn't great, but I like the dynamics thanks to the hair. Looking forward to seeing what everyone else comes up with. So I think it's, a lot of fun, this one, Nicola. The only thing I would say, I think could have been quite interesting is it looks like if you're doing this via window light, that the window is below you. So we're getting this uplit kind of thing. Could have been interesting if you sort of had the light maybe coming from the side or even down from the top. Having said that, the light coming underneath also adds to the kind of, what was that? The kind of Bride of Frankenstein, the horror kind of film thing, which is the light tends to, what I've talked before, I mean, a couple of years ago, I was talking about doing like Halloween photos and what have you. And one of the things we are so used, our natural sense is because in daylight, how we evolved, we're used to seeing light coming from above and the shadows to be underneath. So when you invert that, so the shadows are above and the light is underneath, it always looks a bit odd. So, the standard thing sitting around the campfire telling horror stories when you're a kid is you stick a light or a candle under a torch underneath you, so you light from underneath, because that inversion of light just looks wrong, and so automatically unsettles us, wrong foots us as such. But yeah, huge fun, this one, Nicola. It did put a big smile on my face. So thank you very much for sending that one in. What have we got here? Viji was saying to Sandra, like the look and the attitude as well. Anton says, could you try and keep the mouse pointer off the picture when talking about it? Super minor thing, sorry. Well, it depends. Okay, if it's just left in the middle, that could be a bit awkward, but sometimes I'm kind of using it a bit like a pointer, I guess. Viji says, oh my. April says, fun photo. Anton says, awesome, Viji says, the Medusa look. Meg says, absolutely amazing. Lisa says, lol, this is great. Viji says, so much fun. Alan says, great fun. Marilyn says, how fun, Nicola. Susan says, love it, Nicola. Embrace the grey. And Nicola's saying, thank you to all. Great fun to do. And thanks to Susan. It's the best thing I ever did, which is embrace the grey. Excellent. Okay. Next, the final image then, and then we would go on to other votes, so you can start having a think about which image you would vote for, is Marilyn. So Marilyn said, in this one, said, Kim, I'm not very good at photographing people, but I did enjoy shooting some kids on a family outing. This 10-year-old girl was having such fun at a wildlife refuge that I wanted to capture her joy. There wasn't any way to play with lighting or poses, but I do love how happy she is. Any comments for improvement? Well, I think for what you're going for, there aren't really comments for improvement. This is all about capturing as you say, the fun, the joy. She is relaxed. She is happy. She is smiling. She looks like she's just been laughing. It has a very natural feel to it. If anything, the only thing I might possibly suggest is that you get a little bit lower. One of the little tricks, again, for photographing children, we tend to have a habit that all the time, because we're taller than children, we look down slightly. And when we take photos, we're taking photos looking slightly downwards because that's how we're used to seeing them. But one of the key tricks with children and pets as well, for that matter, is get down to their level a little bit. It's always slightly more interesting with kids if you can actually come down and get into eye level rather than looking down on them slightly. That said, you know, natural light, you've got the light slightly behind it, so she's not got hard shadows on the face. It's reflected light coming back onto her face. Adds to that softness of the skin that children tend to have. It's a joyful photo. It's a fun, joyful photo. So yes, thank you for sending that one in. Marilyn. So, yeah, April says she's cute. Anton says, oh, she's so happy. Hair is flowing so wonderfully. Alan says, nice memories. Viji says, happy kid. Anton says, not that this is a toddler, but just thought I'd mention it. Susan says, another lovely, happy image. What a great set of portraits we've had today. Okay, excellent. So, where are we at then? So, what we're going to do now is we are going to do the viewers challenge. Okay, so the viewers vote. So what I will do now is I'm going to go through each of the 13 photos, make a note of which one you think is your favourite photo. Don't write it in until we get to the end, but just make a note. So I'm going to go through and then I'll tot up and just see. It's a little bit of fun. The world doesn't end if you didn't come first, and nor does the world become your absolute oyster because you did. Remember, these are called smug points, designed deliberately so that we don't take them too seriously. However, a little bit of fun then. Which is the viewer's favourite? And then I'll tell you my ones. So we're going to start with, this was April. So April, girl with her hands under her chin. Then we had Janet with a Civil War reenactment sepia photo. That's Janet. Then we've had Anton experimenting with his friend and the side light. So Anton. We have Graham with the garage mechanic. In fact, actually, did I ever read out what Graham put? I don't think I did, but basically it's a friend of his who is one of these who can pretty much fix anything and everything. He's taken a couple of photos of them before. Sorry, Viji says April and Janet I missed. Okay, I'll just do a quick one again. April, this one was April. This one was Janet, was the Civil War. Anton with his friend. Graham going for the stark black and white. Then we have Gunilla with her granddaughter, wind catching the hair. We've got John doing the self-portrait on the sofa. Andy with the rapper producer doing the intense look. It's Andy. Then we have Meg doing the photo of me sitting having a cup of coffee, doing my Sudoku. Viji with the leaves and the trees, so that's Viji, V-I-J-I, if you're wondering how to spell Viji. Alan, there's one L, A-N, doing the self-portrait with the yellow jersey. Sandra with the intimidating guy in black and white. That's Sandra. Nicola. Sorry, that one should be that way round. No? Yes, this way round. Nicola with the hair. It's Nicola. And then finally Marilyn of the young red-headed lass with the freckles. Right. Okay, so what I want you to do now is write into the comments which of those is your favourite. Just the one. Don't list a whole bunch of people because I'll just take the very first name that you put in. So put in who you think ought to get the viewers' vote for that. Now, while you're doing that, I'll just tell you what's coming up. Basically, next week is going to be a feedback session. Okay, so, and already Aydin and Viji have both submitted images ready for it. So I've got room for another couple of slots for feedback for next week. So feedback critique session. One of the best ways you can improve your photography is to get feedback on something directly. And of course, one of the best ways to improve your Smug Point rating as well is to get the feedback. So if you want to kick off April with a good Smug Points rating, get an image in for feedback for next week. Obviously, there's a limited number I can do, so it works on a kind of first come, first serve. So the sooner you can get your image to me, the more chance there is that you will be able to be into this feedback session. So with that in mind, what I will do is I will then, anybody, this is your last chance to put in. Now, hold on a sec. People are saying cities. Who is cities? Who sounds most like cities? I'm kind of slightly lost here why so many people have said cities. Who is cities? What we have is we have April, then Janet, then Anton, then Graham, then Gunilla, then John, then Andy, then Meg, then Viji. April's saying say what? Oh no, whoa, hold on a sec. You know what's happened here? There's a little translation symbol that's come up. It's Viji. How strange. Right. Janet's saying I don't see any cities. This is really weird. This is so strange. Right. Okay. What's happened here is in the comments, there are little, there's a little funny, I've realized it's the little funny symbols that Google Translate uses. And then it says cities. And if I run my mouse over it, they're actually saying Viji. So wherever it says cities is actually Viji. Yes. So, as Anton says, oh my God, does Viji mean cities in some language? Looks like it does, Viji. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Right. So I need to work this one out. So what have we got? So we've got Nicola, Viji, Nicola, Graham, Nicola, Viji, Andy, Marilyn, Graham, Viji, and then say what? Okay, Viji's laughing, says that's funny. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5 for Viji. Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Viji? Then we have Nicola has 1, 2, 3. I think Nicola's got 3. Graham's got a couple. Okay, so it's basically, yeah. So it looks like Marilyn's got 1. Andy's got 2. Okay, so it looks like Viji has 1. Congratulations to Viji. So we are talking about, so in terms of the viewer vote, Viji is our winner. Congratulations, Viji. Bonus 20 smug points to you for this lovely photo of your niece. Right, now my selection, what am I going for here? For me, my top photo in the end has to be Andy. There's so much as a portrait photographer myself, so many aspects to this which I just love, from the expression to the way that it's created, the way it's lit, the whole kind of narrative and everything goes across. So for me, the bonus 30 points for my first place is going to Andy. Second place, I'm going for a joint between Viji. Viji is certainly a second place for me for a bonus 20 points, along with Graham. Now, although the ISO, is very high, the pixel count is very low. It is such a compelling, powerful image. I can't pass this one up. So Graham and Viji, joint second place, both get a bonus 20 Smug Points. And for third place for me, for the bonus 10 Smug Points, Nicola. Okay, so yeah, it's such a fun photo, this. Yeah. Biggest smile on my face seeing this one. So Nicola gets the bonus 10 Smug Points. What I will also do, though, is I'm going to give commendeds, so bonus 5 Smug Points to Alan, to Meg, and to Sandra. So Meg, Sandra, Alan, and Anton was what I also meant to say. Where's Anton? Yeah. So these guys all get a bonus 5 Smug Points as commended. So that's where we're at. Thank you very much to everybody for sending your images, and for everybody who's been here chatting live. I hope you found this interesting. So that pretty much brings us towards the end. Like I say, next week will be a feedback session. Make sure you get your images into me as soon as possible for anybody who wants to be involved in the feedback session. Like I say, I already have 2 in as is, so there's going to, I can only really do about 4. Otherwise, these podcasts go on for way too long. Yeah, so I'll sort out the Smug Points. I'll have to work out the Smug Points to see who's actually won. I suspect it might be Anton's just kind of nipped into the lead there. But if so, whoever's won, I will be sending out an email. And the winner gets to choose next month's topic. So start having a think about that. Is that it? I think that's basically it. If you haven't done so already, hit like. Always useful for the algorithms and what have you, if you can hit like on that. So where have we got now? So lots of people now sort of basically saying congrats to all the various people and to all the winners. Right, okay, so yeah, there we go. And various thanks and bits and pieces. Oh, we've got somebody here. Das Brian 4013 says, what is the max size you want for images sent in? Okay, well, that's a good point. A little bit depends on what you're sending it in for. If it's purely for a challenge, well, there isn't really a max size, to be honest. Certainly if you're wanting an image for critique, feedback, then send me as high a resolution as you can. Send me your edited version, but also, if you can, send me your raw file, because your raw file will give me other options where I might be able to suggest other ways you could possibly have edited it. So there isn't really a max size. What I would say is you want to have a minimum size of a couple of thousand pixels, about 2,000 pixels or so, because smaller than that, we're not making the most of the screen, and it's limiting to what kind of changes we can make to it. So max size isn't really a problem. It's more about minimum size for that. I hope that makes sense, but welcome. Okay, that's various people saying thank you for a great podcast and good night. So excellent. Appreciate all that. So thank you once again to everybody for submitting the images. Thank you for everybody who's taken the time to comment, and I look forward to seeing you all next week at the feedback session. Take care. Bye-bye.